This is its financial history too, where money's past reveals tomorrow's truth. Everyone thinks the Ottoman Empire survived through swords and battles. But the real weapon that kept it alive for 600 years wasn't on the battlefield. It was in the balance sheet. For 6 centuries, one empire fought almost non-stop against kings, sultans, crusaders, rebels, and rising European powers. They expanded, collapsed, rebuilt, survived disasters, and marched armies from the Balkans to the Arabian desert. And somehow, through all of this, they did something almost no empire in world history managed. They didn't go bankrupt. Because the Ottoman Empire didn't just fight wars, they engineered a way to finance war endlessly. Welcome to its financial history too, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The longest-lasting empire nobody explains properly, the Ottomans, ruled from 1299 to 1922, longer than the Romans, longer than the British, longer than nearly every state we call a superpower. But longevity isn't the real mystery. The mystery is this: how did an empire that fought almost constantly avoid collapsing under financial pressure? Most people think empires fall because they lose battles. But battles don't bankrupt nations. Budgets do, leaders do, logistics do. And the Ottomans understood that earlier than anyone. Instead of copying Europe's expensive tax and army model, they built something far more efficient, a machine where war could pay for itself. But before we get into their financial engine, we need to clear something up. For many Western audiences, the Ottomans are still just images: turbans, domes, Janissaries, palaces. The cinematic symbols are familiar. The system behind them is not. A frontier tribe with a financial talent, the Ottoman story begins in northwest Anatolia with Osman I. A frontier warlord with a few thousand riders and incredible timing, the Byzantine Empire was crumbling. Mongol dominance was fading. Power was up for grabs. And the Ottomans grabbed it. Every early conquest wasn't just a military victory. It was income, land, crops, taxes, people, resources. From the first generation onward, warfare was not a cost. It was a revenue stream. When they took Bursa in 1326 and later crossed into Europe, they didn't just gain territory. They gained control of the trade routes between Europe and Asia, the arteries of the medieval world. Anyone traveling from Venice to Persia, Cairo to Budapest, Baghdad to Istanbul, paid Ottoman tolls. And this mattered because war requires 3 things: food, metal, and men. But above all, it requires cash flow. The Ottomans sat on the richest crossroads on earth. Every merchant who passed through their borders paid for the empire's next campaign. But even that isn't enough to explain 6 centuries of warfare. The Timar system, the army that paid for itself. Most states went bankrupt because soldiers are expensive. The Ottomans solved this with a genius move. They refused to pay the army in cash. Instead, they paid soldiers in rights, the right to collect taxes from a village or district. This was the Timar system. A cavalryman, Sipahi, got a tax district. In return, he had to equip himself, maintain his horse, and show up for war ready to fight. No salaries, no payroll, no treasury drain. The state saved money. Villages got stable oversight. The soldier had a reason to protect the land. And the army became self-funding. It was one of the greatest pieces of financial engineering in world history. Europe needed expensive knights and mercenaries. If a king ran out of money, his army vanished. The Ottomans? Their soldiers were funded even in peacetime. War didn't break the system. War activated it. The Janissaries, a different kind of financial logic, but the Ottomans didn't rely only on tax-based cavalry. They built a professional infantry unlike anything else in the medieval world. The Janissaries, disciplined, loyal only to the state, trained from youth. They came from the devshirm, the child levy in Christian villages. Harsh? Yes. Coercive? Absolutely. But financially, it solved a massive problem. Most states spend fortunes raising and training elite soldiers. The Ottomans outsourced the cost of raising children to adulthood, then trained them only at the final stage. They obtained elite soldiers without the lifetime expenses that would bankrupt other states. For centuries, the Janissaries were a cheap, reliable, professional corps. Combined with the Timar system, the Ottoman military became low-cost, self-financing, scalable, disciplined, and every new conquest added more. More land, more taxes, more Timars, more revenue. Europe won wars and came home poorer. The Ottomans often came home richer. Trade routes, monopolies, and tribute. The real empire by the 1500s. The Ottomans were one of the richest states on earth. Why? Because they controlled the economic choke points of the old world. Silk from China. Spices from India. Carpets from Persia. Mediterranean shipping lanes. Red Sea ports. Caravan trails. If it moved, they taxed it. They built state monopolies on salt, tobacco, coffee, the medieval version of national oil companies. They collected tribute from semi-autonomous states, which was cheaper than ruling them directly. And for centuries, the empire avoided the most dangerous trap of all: debt. No bond markets, no foreign lenders. No national debt spiral. They lived within their means while still fighting wars until the world changed. The system breaks by the 1700s. European powers industrialized. Global trade shifted to ocean routes. Ottoman land tolls declined. The Timar system decayed. Soldiers became harder to control. The Janissaries gained political power and resisted reforms. Suddenly, the empire needed a modern, salaried army. Suddenly, war became expensive. And suddenly, for the first time, the Ottomans needed loans, European loans. With European interest rates and European conditions, debt spiraled. Payments fell behind. And in 1881, the empire lost control of its own finances to an international commission. The end had begun, not on the battlefield, but in the balance sheet. The modern parallels: the Ottoman financial system isn't ancient. It just changed clothes. Today, the Timur system survives as outsourced military contractors. Trade choke points are still battlegrounds: Hormuz, Suez, the South China Sea. State monopolies survive as national oil companies and sovereign wealth funds. Conquest paying for conquest survives as resource-driven wars. Debt crises still break nations, from Argentina to Greece to the US debt debate. Technology changes. Economics do not. The lesson: empires don't die because they lose battles. They die because they lose their financial architecture. The Ottomans lasted 6 centuries because their system was efficient, disciplined, and brilliantly designed to turn war into revenue. They collapsed when expansion stopped paying, trade routes bypassed them. Soldiers became too expensive, and foreign debt took control of their future. That's the real warning. Financial systems can hold an empire for centuries. Until the day they can't. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to find them.